we're starting the third Parashat, which is Parashat Lecha. And obviously our main character in this Torah portion is Abraham, better known as Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was a courageous individual who found God on his own. Unlike Adam, who was created by God, and unlike Noah, who God approached, Avraham Avinu found God on his own. And to that is his greatest merit for founding monotheism on his own and starting that whole movement, as we'll soon see. However, prior to that, the Midrash is in a debate when his father Terach actually died. How so? Well, we know the famous story with Avraham and Ur Kasdim, that as a younger man, he defied his father, being the idol manufacturer, and Nimrod, who was the ruler of that land, and who was a tremendous idol worshiper himself. And Abraham challenged them, and he was thrown into the fiery furnace. Thrown into the fiery furnace, he comes out alive. Miraculous. He had kind of no choice but to leave. But not only did he have no choice to leave, God actually told him, get up and go to where I will show you to go. He didn't even give him a destination. But when exactly did Terach die? The Torah tells us, at the end of last week's Torah portion, the last pasuk, it says, Vayhi yemei Terach hamesh shanim u'matayim shana vayamot Terach beharan. Terach dies at the age of 205, the ripe age of 205. Actually, if you look at his ancestors prior, that's actually very young. Nevertheless, compared to our lives, it's a very long life. It's at least double a life. The Midrash tells us, Rabbi Yitzhak teaches, that Avraham felt like he didn't want to leave his father because people would say, he left his father, look at that lack of honor that he's owing to his father. So God answers Avraham, no, don't worry. Your father will die before you will leave. And then to that, the Torah tells us the last verse of the Torah tells us Terach passes away at 205. And the beginning of this week's Torah portion is Lech, Lecha, Mertzecha, God telling Avraham to leave. The Zera Shimshon asks, 1 second, 2 questions. Firstly, Terach was a wicked man. Why? Because he worshipped idols. He went against God. So there is a halacha that a child whose parents are Rashaim, or even one of the parents are a Rasha, a wicked individual, the child does not need to honor them anymore because they're going against God. Who do you listen to? To God or your parents? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because your parents also owe their respect to God. So if they disrespect God, you no longer need to honor them or respect them. Now, having said that, what's Avraham worried about? Why is the Midrash saying Avraham is worried about disrespecting his father and leaving him behind? He doesn't owe him any respect. Second question is, the Zera Shimshon says, there's a problem with the numbers over here. Why? Avraham was born when Terach was 70 years old. Okay? When was Avraham commanded by God to leave his homeland? At the age 75. Make the math. 70 and 75 is 145. How does the Torah say, or better yet, how does the Midrash say that Terach passes away before Avraham leaves? Avraham leaves when Terach is 145 years old. He still has 60 kicking years. Doesn't make sense, the Zera Shimshon says. So he gives 2 answers, each different yet fascinating in their own right. Listen to the following. The Zera Shimshon says that God told Avraham, your father is dead to you. Even though he is alive and he has another 60 years to live, to you he's dead. Why? Because he is a wicked man. As the Talmud in Masechet Berachot says, that wicked people, even during their life, are considered dead. And tzaddikim who die are still considered living. What does that mean? That means that while a person is alive, if they're acting in a wicked manner, they're considered dead because they're not fulfilling their purpose. They're not fulfilling their mission. They may be breathing, talking, moving around, even doing, but they are considered dead. God comes to Abraham and tells him, your father is dead to you. You can leave. You are absolved from the mitzvah of kibud av, of honoring him. Go. Abraham then comes back to God, the Zera Shimshon explains, and says, but Hashem, my father Terach, if we look at the end of last week's Parashat, he escorts me, Abraham says, and my wife, and my nephew Lot, and everything that we have. He actually takes us, and he escorts us to Eretz Yisrael. It seems like he was even doing teshuvah. Even the Mefarshim, the commentaries say, Terach was doing, and he did teshuvah. Abraham said, how would it look when my father's taken a step closer to God that I abandon him? It doesn't look good. Hashem tells Abraham, you're right. In every case, whenever a child has a parent which is wicked, and then that parent is starting to do teshuvah, the child's not allowed to abandon them. They're not allowed to leave them. They have to stay close and help them. And that is true for every single parent-child relationship that will ever be. But God tells him, you, Abraham, you have a special mission. You have a goal. I need you to leave right now and go to Eretz Israel. And don't worry about your father. Because even though some might say, oh look, Abraham left his father, and that's why his father had a decline, his teshuvah is shelema, it's complete, and he needs you no longer. So again, Abraham, God tells him, your father is dead to you, and you are absolved from the mitzvah of kibud av va'em. I learned a tremendous lesson. The Zera Shimshon doesn't say what I'm about to say, but I learned something, and I tried to spin it to the good, because it's a very scary thing for anybody when their parent is still alive, for God or for anybody to come and tell them, your parent, your father, your mother is dead to you. It seems like it's not a good relationship. I wanted to understand it like this. It was only to Avraham Avinu God ever did or ever will say this. That means only by Avraham Avinu is his father, is his family considered dead to them because of Abraham's special and unique goal in life to start this monotheistic movement, which will eventually turn into Bnei Israel and then turn into Judaism. But to anybody else, there is no way that as soon as a parent has an inkling of repentance from their evil ways, a child is never allowed to abandon their parents. Because as children, and we see it now more than often, that it's very often the children who bring the parents back closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What happens? One day your child goes to high school and they go to an NCSY program, or they go to college and they meet a rabbi on campus, or they go to yeshiva on a trip and they get engaged with some Torah study. They come home and they make you turn over your kitchen. I want to eat kosher. They make you change your whole Shabbat lifestyle because they want to keep Shabbat now. They make you take your vacations differently. They make you do things differently. And as parents, sometimes we feel like, wow, our child is so passionate about it, let's go along. So the power that children have, it's funny, last week by Noah, we spoke about the power of a parent towards the child. That even though it was only Noah who was a tzaddik, because he found favor in God's eyes, his children were saved along with him, even though they were not meritorious of it. But this week we learned something different. We learned from Avraham Avinu, only Avraham Avinu was able to leave his parents. Because his father actually did teshuvah enough that Avraham was able to continue and go on to his mission. But every other single child has an obligation, wherever they find fit, to inspire and to bring their parents closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It will be successful. Sometimes it takes time, but we see that. We learned that from Avraham Avinu. Only he was exempt. Only to him was his father considered dead. But to every other single person, as soon as there is a speck of teshuvah, the child now is not allowed to refer to their parent as wicked, and they need to find a way to inspire them and bring them closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu help us all do teshuvah. And to those who've ever seen an experience of a child bringing back their parents in teshuvah, it is actually a beautiful concept. It's a concept which is long-lasting. It's something that the parents feel like, you know what? Just to make my children happy, just to have a relationship with my children, let me go along. And then once they get in, they realize, this is emet, this is the truth. And they get deeper and deeper and deeper. The Zera Shimshon gives a second answer to his question. He asked, well, how is it that Terach passed away before Abraham left? Terach was only 145 years old, and the Torah says he passed away at 205. So when did Terach pass away? Did he pass away at 145? Or did he pass away 60 years later? The Zera Shimshon answers based on a piece of Zohar. The Zohar says that an individual who falls from their standing, falls from their reputation, is considered dead. Something very, very severe. Now he applies this, the Zera Shimshon applies this to Terach. Who was Terach? Terach was the Amazon, the Walmart, the Bloomingdale's, all at once of idols. He manufactured them, he sold them, he had his run-of-the-mill line, he had his custom-made line, he had his vintage line, he had his millionaire line, he had it all. He was wealthy, he was powerful, he was famous, he was it. This was Terach. What happened? The Zera Shimshon explains. Terach's own son, out of all people, who's going to be the one to stand up to such an individual? Terach's own son. Avram comes along and has a showdown with the king, with Nimrod. And he wins. Not only does he win, Terach is left the most embarrassed individual there. I guess it would be a competition of, was Nimrod more embarrassed or was Terach more embarrassed? And the truth is, Terach came out more embarrassed because Nimrod was so haughty, so arrogant, so full of himself, nothing shaked him up. But Terach could not go back home. More importantly, he could not go back to his shop and sell his idols because his own son does not believe and proved the whole country wrong. So Avraham now proved everyone wrong. Terach now did not believe no longer in his product. What's the number one rule? If you want to sell something, or if you want to build something and sell it, you need to believe in it. If I would tell you that the CEO of Apple uses an Android phone, you would not believe me. If I told you that the CEO of Google used an Apple phone, you wouldn't believe me either. It just doesn't work. They would not be successful companies. You need to believe in what you are building. You need to believe in what you are selling. Now the people of Ur Kasdim and of Haran, they now knew that Terach did not believe in his product because his son proved it wrong. How could he believe it? And therefore, he lost his stature. He lost his standing. No one came to him anymore for idols. No one came to him to repair their idols, to buy new idols, to create new idols. That's it. He lost himself. He was here. He lost his business. He lost his reputation. He lost his fame. He lost his power. He lost everything. As the Zohar says, one who goes down in his stature is now considered dead. So even though Terach lived another 60 years, but at age 145, when his son proved Nimrod and that country, that part of the world wrong, now Terach was considered dead. The lesson I took out from this is that as human beings, as friends and as family members, whenever someone is going through one of these life-changing hard moments, What we have to understand is we have to be sensitive to them. We have to feel for them. A person who lost their job, their business crumbled down, their health deteriorated, something dramatic happens in their life. What we have to understand is the Zohar says this individual is considered dead. They have been taken all the wind out of them. They've been crushed, squeezed out. So we have a choice. Lo alenu, some choose to step on those who are falling, which is a horrible thing. Others just decide to be bystanders, walk by, not pay attention. Or, as much as possible, we can be there for them. If there's a way to help, help. Even if there's not a way to help, to commiserate, to be there with them, to be there emotionally for them, to understand the sensitivity of one who goes down in their stature is something that we learn specifically from Terach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us to do teshuvah with our parents and with our children, each in our own level, to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.